And that was when she stumbled upon Rugar and the lady that he came with. Seeing him filled her with relief and filled him with terror, like, oh my God, why is this girl coming after again? And then she now made everything worse. She vomited on his hose and shoes. Hello, Novels and Bits listener. Hi, neighbors. What's good? It's so exciting to be with you today. Honestly, it always is. Which is one of those excitements. Being excited is that I talk too fast. I was listening to the last episode I released and I cringed. I was like, why am I talking as if I'm on fast forward? She's about slow down. Breathe, slow down. I've had a person or two tell me about the pacing of the podcast, that it's fast and that I could do better by slowing down, and I'm going to work on it. I'm working on it already, I promise. Sometimes I get excited. I get too excited. So I'm just like, I'm not talking at breakneck speed. I'm like, you know, rapping the thing all the way. And that's not meant to be. I'm really sorry. Also, I apologize that I didn't show up on Thursday. It's been a week since the last time we saw. Okay, what happened on Thursday is I was taking on more than I could handle. And I had a personal life crisis because I was worried about many things. I was overworking myself, pushing myself too hard. And if I had pushed myself beyond that, I might have broken down. But hey, I'm here today, and you're here today, and we're gonna have a good time. So what's up with that? Okay, so without wasting further time, let's get right into the story. So we've been talking about Behind Closed Doors by Bettina Cran. This book set in the 16th century and mostly in English court. So first of all, we've defined the story that Rugar was this ambassador from Sweden sent to the English court to impress them, but he also had a personal score to settle. So while he was there, unfortunately for him, his first target was Corrie. I always end up calling her Corrie. I think it's because that's what Rugar calls her, like, fondly. Like, but her name is Corrie for short. So he ends up falling in love with Corrie, yeah? But he doesn't know he's in love with her yet, yeah? And it kind of slows down all his plans. Do you get? Because where we stopped in the novel is that he just meant to sleep with English court women because he found them loose and without morals, because one of them had disvirgined him when he was only 12 years old. And it was like a scar, a trauma for him. So now that he's back at court, he's like, oh, all these cheap women, so long as they're willing, and I'm going to charm all of them. Which kind of willing? Like, I'm going to make all of them willing and charm them and sleep with them and show Elizabeth that I can steal her loyalties with my man prowess, which is one thing she doesn't have. Because at Elizabeth's age, and being without a king, what Elizabeth values the most in the world is loyalty from her maids. Do you understand? But based on the fact that she values this thing so much, she tends to hold her mates too tightly, as far they're hardly allowed to get married and all that. So many of them have to succumb to doing sneaky around to satisfy their urges and things like that, instead of getting married, because the queen won't really let them. So that was the situation on ground, and everybody knew this. It's just, but he's a queen, and so they're all trying to find a way to deal with it, to live with it. She's like the most powerful person in England at the time. She's a monarch. Her word is everything. You don't want to like cross her. So that's why Rugar was aiming to steal their loyalties, like charm them in front of her and sleep with those who were willing, but make sure he's never caught. Because it's one thing that the queen suspects, oh, this guy is messing around with my court ladies, and it's another thing to get caught. So he was trying to play all smart. But Corrie would be his undoing. And you'll see how. Okay, so let's get into the story today. All right, so where we stopped was that, you know, it was a Queen's tournament. Rugar had just come into England and was just showing off how well he was good at everything, like dwelling, dancing, all of those things, yeah? So that's the point where we are at. And also at this point, he is trying to seduce Corrie, like win Corrie over and everything. And you know, as much as his friend had come to tell him, Baron Ton, that he came with from Sweden, the other Sweden delegate with him, the guy had already researched from court and told him, see, this girl you're after, She's the kind of girl you said you'll never be after all because of what happened to you. She's an innocent, oh, leave her alone. But he did not hear word. He was like, how can anybody in English court be innocent? Meanwhile, and she's also wearing all those plunging low necklines. And that was the first time Corrie was wearing those necklines, oh. And they had also warned Rugar, leave this girl alone. He's not hearing. He's like, that the fact she's a queen's pet, that it even makes more reason that will conquer this girl more. Like, he was jaded when it comes to like English court. He believes that none of them is innocent and all of them deserves to be punished and to be at the receiving end of his vengeance. Yeah, so that's where we're at now. Normally, now other games, tournament games, because they're celebrating Queen's Day, like kind of the anniversary of the Queen's coronation. So they're doing all these tournament games. Rugar was mostly beaten. Even after that first day, he introduced himself in such a dramatic way. So from the way he was really skilled at most of the tournament games, it was easy to see that this guy, an Italians, way trainer more. We know that Rugar's vengeance is something he's planned for a long time. So he's been preparing for this moment his entire life. And of course, he's making it count. He could tilt, he could dance, he could ride, he could fence. That was nothing he couldn't do. The queen was glad though, low-key, that he was beating her knights because she was aware that they'd grown soft and knew they needed this experience to shape up. Let it just not be that he was winning so that he could impress Corrie. That was what she wouldn't tolerate. Rugar now asked Corrie later to take a walk with him in the garden. She was nervous, but once she got there, she relaxed. They were having a good time until the statue deer jumped in front of them. It was one of the deers that Rugar had presented to the queen with the sleigh. You know, the Father Christmas deer and sleigh. Reindeer. That was so one of the bears had escaped and then now jumped into their part. The gamekeeper was chasing it with a club. You know what club is? Club looks like big baton, like to beat it. So and Corrie could not just let a poor animal like the deer get beaten. So she abandoned Rugar and ran to catch up to the deer first. It was a risky move, but she succeeded in reaching the bear, calming it down, and by the time Rugar and the gamekeeper approached her, everything was under control. Corrie admitted that I used to have a fawn, a small deer that used to escape often, and my father was often upset. So normally I used to try to catch the fawn before my father would. So it made me an experienced deer catcher. So that's a cool thing. Corrie, the deer catcher. So the gamekeeper took the deer away and Corrie and Rugar continued with their walk. Corrie asked multiple questions about Sweden. Does it ever stop snowing? Can you really see the sun at midnight? What kind of sports and games do they play? Are all Swedish children blonde? To this last question, are all Swedish children blonde? Yes. Rugar was impressed and warmed because Corrie was interested in his background and where he came from. Soon they were in a passionate embrace, got into the situation. He was nibbling her. Corrie was like, "Oh, this feels good. Keep on, keep on." And Rugar forgot that I'm meant to be seducing this girl. Instead, he was as caught up like, I want to please her. Let me show her this thing can be sweet. Next thing, he came to his senses because he nearly fell out of the bench. They were seated in the garden, public place, and doing kissing like that. He was like, hey, Jesus, this girl is taking my mind away. So he was disappointed in himself, tore himself away from her. I was like, later, that kind of thing. As for Anne, Corrie's cousin Anne and Baron Sigurd, like Baron Thorn now. Baron Thorn came first in archery, but Anne scorned it. She was like, he should be good at it since he matches a dry stick. Both of them, they don't have emotions, that kind of thing. So Elizabeth noticed for sure that something was brewing between her pet and Rugar. So she called Corrie away from Rugar one time when they were trying to socialize, holding hands under the table and that sort of thing. She's like, Corrie, come and play the vaginal instrument for me. Apparently, a vaginal is like similar to a piano, but, in those days, that's what it's called. So just think of it as a piano, and Corrie could play like really excellently, like a Beethoven, Mozart kind of expert on it. So Corrie normally, she used to play for Elizabeth. She used to play this instrument for Elizabeth in private. So that was the first time Elizabeth was like, play this thing for me in public. And this action was to speak directly to Rugar as per, I still own this pet. Yeah, her loyalties are still to me. And the thing is, the moment Corrie started playing the music, oh my God, everybody got caught up. And then Rugar can sing. He now just came to stand beside her, started singing. And then if you see the way they were performing as if they had practiced it, and there was chemistry there. And so the whole thing made Anne, she was looking at them, she was like, I miss my late husband so much. So she was now looking around, her eyes now fell on Ton, who too was, he looked like he had softened at the sight of watching those two perform. And then clearly, next thing, Ton now turned his head, and then his eyes now met, and Anne could clearly see, this guy desires me. And obviously, because she's aware of things like that, she just smiled this sensual smile that to Ton, it was taunting him. And obviously, Ton is like, I am righteous. I would not do English harlot. So he was not like angry that why is Anne so proud? And she's not, at the same time, she's stirring me up that she's proud and I know she's loose, but why am I still attracted to her? And next thing, he now turned around and fled the scene. After that day, because of the whole chemistry now and the whole performance both of them put up, playing music, the other one singing, Elizabeth was more concerned about what might be stirring up between Corrie and Rugar. So she now sought the sneaky services of Maurice Lombard, a man who hated Jack Huntington, that is Corrie's father. She was like, watch Rugar closely, report whatever he does to me, especially whatever lady he meets. She's like, if you do this job well, I'm going to give you a place in government. And of all the people to use, the reason why she chose Maurice is exactly because he hated Corrie's father. Because at least he will not be like, the cheat is young, let her explore life. He want to report everything that is bad. So that's exactly, and Elizabeth wanted to know everything. Do you get? That's why she employed his services, because he's a sneaky person. So it was finally the day that Rugar would find out that Corrie was a maid. You know, when they say maid, it means virgin. Yeah? Let's just remind us, that's Old English. So he went to her in the library because she had duties at the library that day. She showed him around the library. Soon they retreated to a corner of the library. They started kissing. His hands boldly went places. He noticed that she would stiffen small when his hand would go someplace. But then she would now force herself to relax. And next thing, he was lifting her skirt. And then she was like, oh, like, teach me what to do next. And he's like, you've never done it before? She's like, she just shook her head. And then it now hit him. He was like, oh my God, my worst nightmare nearly came to pass. He quickly disentangled himself from her and said, there'll be another time. Okay, the library is not the right place. It's not the right time. And in his mind, he added, and another man, because it cannot be me. You understand? So from that day, he started avoiding Corrie and turned his attention to other court ladies, even the ones that don't have teeth, old ones. This guy would charm everybody. And the switch was so loud. You know, the switch from everybody knew that his attention was on Corrie, and next thing, his attention is on any other person but Corrie. The switch was so loud that everybody was like low-key wondering what happened between both of them. But anyway, court people move on too quickly. Besides, most of the women were so into Rugar's charms, they didn't question the ease with which he moved on from Corrie. They're like, at least he's facing us, and we're enjoying it, feeling like a nice woman. That's fine. So just as Corrie was awed by Rugar's presence, like, oh my God, this fine guy, he noticed me, that's the same way she was shocked by how he abandoned her so callously, as though they'd never had anything to do with each other. She was in pain, and Anne felt sympathy for her. Elizabeth was extra protective of Corrie during that season because she knew, like, obviously she saw how this guy retreated from her, and Elizabeth kept her closer. She would ask her to recite the Seneca because the Seneca had wisdom, wise words, and then when Corrie would say, she'd be comforted by some of the words in it. So Anne met Corrie in her room and was like, okay, I'm seeing this whole thing happening between Rugar and you, so what exactly happened? And Corrie was like, I told him I was a maid and he stopped. Anne was angry. That was wrong with these Sweden people. Okay, this other one does not want you because you're a maid. This other one does not want me because apparently I am a woman without morals and values. What is wrong with them? So which woman do they now want? She gets. So that was what was paining Anne. But Corrie wanted Rugar. She was sure of it, and she asked Anne to help her. That's how Corrie turned around and started chasing Rugar. But she did it almost subtly. She would just corner him at every turn. She wouldn't allow him to have a private opportunity with most of the women he was chasing, because she just come and tell the women, the queen is calling for you, you have to hurry. And then the woman will now run to answer queen, and then Corrie will now stay with Rugar. That he will push her away each time. Like each time, yeah, like, this girl, I've asked you to go, leave me now. She still be pursuing. Although on few occasions, because he actually really likes Corrie, he'll still get carried away, they'll share a passionate kiss, but nothing really was happening. She was the one just cornering him. And even as he was chasing all these men, he was chasing Rugar on his own part. It did not feel sweet to him the way he normally used to. And he realized that subconsciously he's comparing all these women to Corrie. I keep saying Corrie. Her name is Corrie. If I say Corrie, anyone, carry it like that. You get. So that's the thing. Corrie was in his mind very well. But at least Rugar was succeeding in one thing. He was succeeding in making the court women desert their seats around the queen and surround him instead. So the queen was enraged by this. She recognized exactly what Rugar was doing. He was boasting and showing off his male prowess and potency, the only power that Elizabeth didn't have. He was stealing her lady's love and loyalty from her. Fuming inside, Elizabeth was like, I'm going to deal with this guy. I'll show him I'm a queen. So Corrie was desperate for Rugar still. Even though he was resisting her, she was like, Dad, see, because he at a point had to tell her, see, I cannot marry you. You deserve somebody that'll marry. She's like, she now reason this thing. I was like, Dad, see, this guy is my once in a lifetime. Even if he doesn't give me marriage, it's fine. I want to just know the pleasure he has to give, that sort of thing. I was like, as I was reading this, I was like, this girl is, come on, you're 18. You have a whole life ahead of you. What makes you think you'll not find someone else you're crazy about? But Shai is novel, and she's just like, it's only you that I want, and I know you like me too. He still rejected her. Like, that day itself was that things almost went too far because he undid part of her clothes and things like that. But then, as the sense hit him, like, what am I doing? He's like, he just literally helped her into her clothes again. I was like, oh yeah, be going. And all these things don't used to happen in Rumo. Like one private part of the palace, one garden enclosure, this one. That's where all this rubbish used to happen. So he didn't shout on her. He just dragged her as he rejected her out of that private place, put her on a path that was public, left her there and fled. But there were 3 witnesses to Corrie's rejection that saw her looking all dejected and partly like at least scattered as somebody that, they tussled in bed and things like that. So the 3 witnesses were Anne, who quickly comforted her, took her somewhere private, Ton, Rugar's friend that scolded him for messing with Carrie, and then the opportunistic Maurice Lombard, the queen's spy. Now, look at the reason why Maurice Lombard does not even like Jack, like Corrie's father. Jack had actually cost Lombard a lot in the past. He was the reason why Lombard went to jail and lost his law career. Now it was Lombard's turn to get even. He didn't go to the queen with this news, though, that Corrie and Rugar were entangled again. He just said, no, I am going to wait until Corrie has committed the highest of things that the queen cannot commit. Then I will bring the queen to see her. That's the ultimate revenge. So he's waiting for Corrie to enter. You understand? So one afternoon, the queen was very irritable, partly because of Rugar and maybe other things. So she commanded a spectacle to be held. The spectacle was to be the baiting of a bull, a bear, and an ape. The game would be bloody. Corrie had never attended a game like that because her father had never let her go. Rugar came to the game with one of the court ladies whom he was planning to, have something with, because his apartment was close by. When his plan was that as the crowd had distracted and into the game, he would sneak out with this woman to his apartment for an hour or 2, and then they'll return before anybody noticed they were gone. Unfortunately, halfway through the game, it got too bloody for Carrie, because see what used to happen in the game here. They would chain the beasts. Like, they would chain the bull, the bear, and a small ape. They would chain them down, and then to a stake, and then they will now release hungry wild packs of dogs that you can be seeing their ribs into the baiting ring, and these dogs will now start biting the beast, like ripping them apart. So the beast will now be crying, and their cries will sound so human-like, and they can't defend themselves because they're chained down, and that's what people are enjoying watching. Like, you see blood, everything, the excited blood loss of people. So at a point, Corrie could not breathe. Her vision just got blurry. She was sweating. She was about to faint. So she was now trying to fight her way out of the crowd. And that was when she stumbled upon Rugar and the lady that he came with. Seeing him filled her with relief and filled him with terror. Like, oh my God, why is this girl coming after again? And then she now made everything worse. She vomited on his hose and shoes. The lady he was with and some Londoners around him were like, ew, she's sick. Because in those days, at the sight of anything that looks like a symptom of illness, people will run from you. As far, don't infect me. That time now. Many of them don't used to live that long then. Because you see somebody that is like 20 something in that time, looking like 40 something in our time. So they used to avoid all these sickness things very well, because any baram they will die. Their medicine is not advanced now. So as they saw Corrie seeming sick, everybody they just gave way. So Corrie fainted after vomiting on his hose and shoes. So Rugar had no choice. He had to carry her to his apartment. She woke up in his bed and she apologized for inconveniencing him. A layer of Corrie's innocence was taken away from her because of the game. Because she'd read it, that humans can be cruel to animals, but she'd never seen it. So watching people get so excited as animals are getting killed bit by bit under such intense agony, she's like, well, I didn't know humans are this bloodthirsty. So Rugar comforted Corrie. He told her that they were bad people, but that didn't mean they weren't good people. The moment got tender and they started kissing. Then Ton entered the apartment, calling for Rugar, who quickly jumped away from Corrie. But Ton saw her in Rugar's bed and had tussled her parents, like, things were heating up here, So Rugar tried to explain what happened, like, I saw her the game, she admitted I brought her here, but Ton was just glaring at him. So after Rugar sent Corrie on her way, even Corrie was just like embarrassed, like, don't worry, I can find my way. Rugar squarely faced Ton Skoden, who reminded him, look, we're in England to further Swedish interest, not seduce innocent girls. So the confrontation finally made Rugar realize, I'm in love with an 18-year-old English virgin. He didn't deny this himself, but he's like, oh my God, I have to keep her away for her own safety. He was currently on the Queen's bad side and might get in trouble with her soon. He didn't want Corrie to get caught up in that. But the problem was this. Rugar could not keep Corrie away if she didn't want to be away from him. So he had to give her a reason to hate him so that she can stay far away from him. Unfortunately for him, he ran into Anne that same day and quickly turned his charms on her. So he planned to sleep with Anne, Corrie's own cousin that she was close to, so that Corrie would feel so betrayed she would never come near him again. Rugar set a day and time for their tryst, but he didn't know that Anne was more honorable than he thought. First of all, besides her late husband, what most people don't know about Anne is that the only lover she'd ever had was that Sir Christopher Layton that Queen Elizabeth chased from court because of Corrie. It's surprising, but it's true. And it's been nearly a year since she'd been sexual with anybody. Yeah, she was attracted to Rugar. Why? Because obviously she's not had action in a while. But love, loyalty, and Corrie's companionship, they were more valuable to her than a lover. So Anne went to Corrie and lied to her that Rugar approached me to set both of you up tonight too. So that night, under cloaks, the cousins sneaked to Rugar's apartment, and after bidding her goodbye, Anne returned to her room. Unbeknownst to them, Lombard had tailed them the entire way and discovered that Corrie was going to be with Rugar that night. Meanwhile, Rugar tried to get drunk, and he delayed returning to his apartment, hoping that Anne would have vexed that he's wasting time and left. But as he entered his room and saw woman's cloak, he's like, hey, she's still here. He started forcing himself to go towards his bed. That's when he saw it was Corrie. As usual, it was easy for him to just fall for Corrie's charms when she praised his country flag and made him long for her with just a smile. Like, she just smile, praise him, say something. Uncle's already mush. Like, he's just like butter in her hand. She can bend him easily. But he tried as usual, but this time was weak. This trial to send her away was weak because he couldn't take her innocence. That's when Corrie dropped a bombshell. So look at what she said. And this is so true. People always assume, the time someone's innocence is really gone is when maybe they sleep with man or do something. But Corrie's like, but you already have my innocence, Rugar. Bit by bit, you've already claimed it. You've weakened my senses and my body to the pleasures of physical love. And with it, awakened in me the desire for such delight. You've invaded the tenderest, most private realms of my heart and stirred in me a need for loving communion with a man. I know it sounds poetic. Most of the book sounds poetic like this. I don't know how I read it, but I did. I just tried to get the gist and I kept moving. I know. So funny. But yes, sometimes that's how we read old English books. Okay, so as Corrie said this thing, Rugar was dumbstruck. He searched inside himself and knew that what she said was true. He hadn't meant to, but it was what he'd selfishly done and he was sorry. That's when Corrie begged him, can you just finish what you started? Can you teach me the rest? Because there'll be no other teacher besides you. So Rugar caved in and agreed to teach her. Meanwhile, Lobard waited until he knew that things might be, heating up between the couple before he now went to alert the Queen that is Anne. No, that Anne is with Rugar at this very moment. He knew it's Corrie, but he said Anne deliberately. So the Queen gathered her soldiers. She marched towards Rugar's bedchambers. They forced their way in. And, first of all, the first set of soldiers came in first, held Rugar down. Then the second batch of soldiers came with the Queen. And then the Queen was shocked to see that it was Corrie, not Anne, in bed with Rugar. And then she now turned to look at Lombard. And Lombard now pretended, that means I'm confused too. I thought, confused, kill you there. So Rugar was imprisoned while Corrie was locked inside her room. The situation was bad. Elizabeth felt hurt and betrayed by marry Corrie. She considered the act with Rugar a treason. So Corrie blamed herself for everything. Rugar tried to warn her of the risk of coming to him that way. She hadn't listened, and now she put him in a dangerous situation and lost the queen's favor at the same time. What will become of her and Rugar now? What did the queen have in mind? When the day broke, Elizabeth sent for Jack, Corrie's father. As for Rugar, she wanted him dead. But her sage and loyal secretary Cecile stepped in and is like, Queen, no, this is a credentialed foreigner, or this is an ambassador. It didn't matter to her. And she could well get away with it because monarchs of those days had a lot of power. Her plan was to behead Rugar and send Corrie away to the country to heal for some time. Then restore her to her side as a pet where no one could accuse her. But what if Corrie was pregnant already? Cecile asked. Elizabeth couldn't stand the thought of it. Like, ew, with that man's child. So Cecile was like, okay, see a better option here. Give Rugar a chance to marry Corrie or die. If he doesn't want to marry her, we'll behead him. So the queen is like, I don't want Rugar to have my pet. He'll be winning. Cecile was like, no. You can just wait for a month or two for the scandal to tame, and then you send Rugar packing from the country. So she's like, I don't like this. She threw a tantrum, scattered goblets, But she's like, okay, fine. I'll agree to this diplomatic solution. Just like that, she summoned her chief steward to plan a wedding and Maurice Lombard for another mission. What does she want Maurice for? We're going to see. When Jack arrived, he was fuming that a Swede with a funny name like what name is Rugar Kalisson? What funny name is that? So that he was fuming that a Swede with a funny name and known to be a race of barbarians who treated women like cattle was one his daughter had a scandal with. Israel was like, this is actually really cultured. He's as handsome as Lucifer and twice as subtle. In fact, Jack, he's very much like you in your younger years. Karma! Because John did this thing to many people's daughters, so his own daughter is receiving it now. So after 2 days of being locked in her room, Corrie met her dad and he wasn't mad at her. The wedding was held. Rugar wasn't even annoyed by it. But he had to swallow insults because part of the wedding agreement was that he would not inherit any of Corrie's holdings. Like, just in case she had an untimely death, he should not think that my wife died, I'm going to inherit anything. And the thing is, Corrie's dowry is going to stay under her name, not her husband's name. In English law, when a woman marries, anything she owns belongs to her husband. But the way her dad designed it, and based on the situation, everything Corrie owned would still remain Corrie's. You get, just so that I don't trust this Sweden people. Which is, I shall like it, at least in Corrie's favor, if Rugar, mess up, sha. But let's move on. So with the wedding, Rugar fully realized that actually I want more. What I want more is sweet possibilities of marriage with Rugar Kalisson. I want it more than I want the bitter satisfaction of revenge. So the wedding dinner went on until late. That day they got married, the wedding banquets and all that the queen arranged for them. Then when it was time for bed, Corrie was waiting in their room while Rugar and Ton, they had to walk from the hall through the passage to the room. Then Ton was supposed to keep watch at the door. But then, as they were going to the room, Rugar was like, where's the wedding gift I asked you to bring for Corrie, the coronet? She's like, oh, I left it somewhere, let me go and get it. So Rugar was waiting for him in the corridor, and then they ambushed Rugar. So when Ton returned, he did not see his friend. He now felt uneasy because he also recalled the evil eye the queen was giving them at the wedding banquet. Then he overheard Rugar's abductors whispering that they were supposed to capture 2 of them and put on a ship. But where's the other person? So that's how Ton had to stealthily follow the men who were trying to capture him so they could lead him to Rugar. He succeeded. He knocked unconscious one of them and dragged his friend to safety. Once they got out of the situation, Rugar's priority was to return to Corrie, who he knew must have been waiting for him and feeling anxious. This situation confused Ton. Shouldn't you be making your life a priority and get on a ship straight back to Stockholm? But Rugar had a bride to please, and that was all that mattered to him. So Rugar lied to Corrie that he was late because he and Ton were up to some old Swedish wedding tradition. Then he gifted her the coronet. A coronet is all those flower crowns that we used to see, all this fairies. Like, I think the girl in a Maleficent wore it, like the Belle girl, the one that's meant to be playing Sleeping Beauty, that was calling Maleficent's godmother. That coronet thing? Yes. So that's the thing that he gave to Corrie. It was a Swedish custom for brides to wear it on their special day. The gesture really touched Corrie because she had been so worried because Rugar had not had a chance to talk. Like, They just met each other in wedding hall, got married, and now this is the night, yeah? They've not had a chance to talk, so she hadn't confirmed that is he upset to be marrying her and things like that. So based on this act he did, she's like, okay, he's not mad at me. Then they made love for the first time. Yeah, I know. You thought they made love that night, but they didn't. They didn't. The night the queen ambushed them, they didn't go all the way. I think it was only foreplay. But Elizabeth did not know that. If only she knew, she would have been so mad. Like, you have not even do anything and I allowed you to marry. Well, anyhow, that's what it is. So anyway, the couple talked a lot afterwards and were really thrilled by the idea that they could spend their lives together. Like after everything was done, they were just talking. I mean, they're actually close. They usually have a lot of sweet things to talk about. So Corrie asked questions as usual that piqued Rugar's interest and made him search his thoughts. At noon the next day, Elizabeth prepared to go and comfort Corrie because she was convinced Rugar had left English soil since she arranged for it to happen now. With Rugar gone without explanation, Corrie would feel betrayed by men, and then after she would go to the country to heal, she would now return to Elizabeth's side wizened and stay there. That was Elizabeth's plan all along. But she did not know that Rugar was alive and well and on ground. A large company went with her, like a lot of courtiers, that's what they're called, because she had told them, let's go wake the newlyweds, while fully expecting that there was only going to be one newlywed. She was in a good mood, but that mood quickly vanished once the newlyweds opened the door to their bedroom and she saw Rugar looking hale and hearty. On their own and in private, Corrie pleaded with Rugar, please, just look like you're miserable and repentant when you see the queen. We have wronged her after all. He said he would try, but it's not going to be easy. Elizabeth called Lombard to her chambers and she was like, why am I still seeing Rugar around here? Anton, didn't you do your job? Make sure they're gone by nightfall. So the truth is, Rugar wasn't feeling sorry, what he did and everything entirely because this is the English and he'd hated them for a long time. And when Jack asked, I hope people are going to remain in England for a while so that Corrie can visit her mother before people travel to Sweden, Rugar agreed, although in his head he knew it wasn't likely since, the queen was after them. But what he did also was he extended an invitation for Jack and any of his wife's family saying, okay, people can call to Stockholm anytime and be my guests. He now even added, because when he offered that invitation, there was a way Jack bristled, like, how could you invite me to that barbarian country? So the thing now made Rugar now add, he didn't mean to add this part. And this part also made Corrie like, it's not what are you saying? But he now told his father-in-law that, don't worry, I can also find suitable Swedish tutors for Corrie's younger sisters when they grow up so that the sisters can live close by. Corrie was like, please give the guy room to get used to one of his daughters living in Sweden before you start talking about more. You get that kind of thing. So that afternoon, as the queen was plotting Rugar's kidnap, he too was making arrangements to return to Sweden. He paid an enormous fee for transportation since it was sudden and done in secret. So there was dinner again that night in the banquet hall. Along the way, a message arrived from Baron Thorn to Rugar asking to meet at the gallery. Rugar was instantly alert. Why is Thorn asking to meet him at the gallery? But he was careful as he went there. He also found Thorn, who had received an identical message. Although alert, they were still overpowered by the men, who are far outnumbered them, like men that sprung out guards. And Lombard was very satisfied to see both of them knocked out unconscious. Meanwhile, as Rugar left to answer Thorn's call, Corrie approached the queen and begged for forgiveness. Elizabeth quickly forgave her and invited her to sit beside her like old times. But as the night went on, Corrie got increasingly worried when Rugar didn't reappear. She confided in Anne and together they went to search for Rugar and Thorn in their old apartments, but they weren't there. There was a problem if this was happening 2 nights in a row. Anne tried to comfort Corrie and ended up falling asleep in Corrie's room, that room that her and Rugar, stayed as married people now with her. So when Rugar and Thorn woke up, they were on the ship, like when they woke up from being unconscious because they beat their head bad. They were on the ship of the captain that they paid heavily for. That I told you they paid an enormous fee for passage of 3. So the captain is like, okay, pa here. So where is passenger number 3? So risking their lives once more, they snuck back to the palace and stole Corrie, and they also stole who they assumed was Corrie's maid, Madeleine, but it was actually Anne. And the reason why Rugar stole the second woman was he wanted a maid, an English maid at least, that would keep Corrie company. So they hardly took any clothes now since they're hurrying. They just wrapped them in blankets and their night shifts and carried them like that. So Anne was much tougher to carry than Corrie, because Corrie was sleeping, passed out. So just easy to carry her. Anne fought. They had to knock her out. This was that. But they don't know. They're like, why is this old woman strong and heavy like this? This is that. And it was Thorn that carried Anne. So after they brought them safely to the ship and to their bunks, the blanket fell open. Tom was so shocked that he had accidentally brought Anne. She was definitely going to punish him for this. So when Corrie woke up, she was on a ship and Anne was already awake. And Anne was now railing at the men. Why did you bring me on this ship? Why taking me to Sweden? The last place I want to be. Take me back to England. Da, 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 da. So Rugar asked Dawn to just take the witch. Like, Anne, take the witch out. Let me speak to Corrie in private. So Corrie quickly noticed, like, Rugar had bruises on his lip, his eyebrow, this is that. Like, what happened to you? Then he was like, we were abducted. And that's why we had to leave England suddenly. Corrie was like, who did this? She was like, it's Elizabeth. Corrie refused to be Elizabeth. Like, she refused to believe it. Like, why would Elizabeth do that? She planned our wedding. She already forgave us. Rugar is like, see, Elizabeth is possessive and she loves you because she sees you as something to be owned, as a demonstration of her power. The same way she loves you is the same way she hates me, because I challenge her power. And that's where he fell hand, because he now said, I challenged her power and won. Corrie was like, hold on, what do you mean by you won? The summary is he outperformed the English knight and he stole Elizabeth's pet. Corrie's like, you stole me? Oh my God, I've been so wrong about you. You hate my people. You speak of me as a prize and lifeless trophy instead of as a person with flesh and blood. So Corrie's sadness pierced through Rugar's bitterness, and he quickly realized that he had hurt her. Corrie was loyal and innocent. Those qualities made her blind to the Queen's dark side, same as they made her blind to Rugar's dark side too. So in trying to expose the Queen's dark side, Rugar also revealed his own dark side. So he tried to apologize, but Corrie shrank away from him. She was so sad. And then he was sad as he left the cabin. So Corrie was crying and all of that. Meanwhile, the witch that Tom carried out, both him and the witch were dealing with their own attraction there. And it was shocking both of them because they don't like each other. So why are we feeling like this? Because in carrying Anne away, Ton had his arms wrapped around her. And that didn't help their situation. She was now shouting at him, don't touch me again. You don't ever touch me again. Like the moment he let her loose. And she's like, and she now said something that really challenged him. She was now like, the next time you set your hands on me, Swede, it had better not be to restrain me. If I could whistle, I would whistle right now, okay? So back at Whitehall's royal apartments in England, the Queen discovered that Corrie and Anne were abducted. So she called the enemies together, Jack and Lombard, like Corrie's father, to work together to bring Corrie back. Jack would do it because it's his daughter at stake here, but Lombard would do it because he wanted that promotion the Queen promised him. Actually, when the Queen even sent for him, was even measuring clothes that he wear in his official new position. So to get the consulars to approve the expense of the trip, because they were taking a ship and some other things, Elizabeth now said that Corrie committed treason by leaving English soil without her permission. She had to say that thing. If it's treason, they will let him go and bring her back to punish her. But you cannot say that, her husband stole her away. It's going to be like, it's her husband that carried her, now leave her. But, she did not want that. That would mean Rugar would. So she now said that Corrie actually committed treason. We know it's not true, but it just at least gave the case weight so that the consulars can approve the budget and things like that. So now a new chapter begins. Let's see what the Queen would do to Corrie if she brings her back, when she brings her back, and what will Corrie's adventure in Sweden look like. And did she make up with Rugar? How did they make up? And all of those things. So I'm going to see you on Thursday for the final episode of Behind Closed Doors. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Please don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen. Rate if you are listen on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And tell someone about the podcast. Thank you so much. Okay, bye-bye.